Sean Hannity if you haven't joined the brigade. Wall Street Journal today. Ryan Rubio seek party rebranding. And last night at a Jack Kemp Foundation dinner, both Senator Marco Rubio and Congressman Paul Ryan were speaking, and here's part of Senator Rubio's comments.
And government has a role to play, and we must make sure that it does its part. But it's a supporting role to help create the conditions that enable prosperity in our private economy. That's a crucial role, but a necessarily limited one. It can't substitute for what is meant to enable a thriving, free economy. It is not the ever-expanding reach of government, but rather having access to the benefits of a thriving economy that allows the poor to rise into the middle class, not by making rich people poorer, but by making poor people richer. And to do that, we need a limited and effective government, and you cannot have one without the other. Big government is not effective government. Big government has never worked. The promise of more government is the answer to all our problems. It's easy to sell, but when you put it in practice, it fails and has failed every single time. Because big government has never been able to create and sustain a vibrant and stable middle class. And if any people on earth should know that, it is us. Because for most of us, we need to look no further than our own communities to see where the answers to our challenges lie.
Wow, pretty powerful. Sounds like Milton Friedman. And Senator Rubio is on our Newsmaker line. How are you, sir?
Good, Sean. How are you?
Now, by the way, just one personal note. I know your daughter was written about during the election. She was in a car accident. How's she doing?
She's doing great. She's no lasting effects, and obviously we're blessed and grateful. And I appreciate all those folks around the country, including you, Sean, who've reached out and expressed your well wishes and your prayers, and we're eternally grateful. Thank God she's fine.
Yeah, thank God. I got the honor of meeting your whole family.
Yeah.
I mean, those kids are awesome, and good. I'm glad to hear it. I knew that things were getting better. I just wanted to check in. All right. So, by the way, did Paul Ryan really say last night, "Hey, Senator, do you know a good diner in Iowa or New Hampshire?"
Yeah, he said, what the joke he was making was that he's the first annual recipient of the Jack Kemp Award, and I'm the second recipient, so it's a pretty exclusive club. So he said we'd have like reunion lunches or dinners in New Hampshire and Iowa, and then I quipped that I wasn't going to stand by and watch as the people of South Carolina were ignored that way. So it's all in good nature. He gave a great speech last night, and is a real voice for the future for our party, and I was excited to be there with him.
Look, I don't think that this is the time for anybody to be talking about 2016. I mean, we're a month out of this last election. It seems that there's usually, after an election, a period of governing, but I don't see that happening this time. I mean, I see the president out campaigning and either defending Susan Rice. We've had, the war on women card played, the race card played, and now class warfare is being used every day to advance the fiscal cliff argument on the president's side. It's frustrating.
Yeah, he's playing a game of chicken with something that's very serious. And what is serious here is that there's the potential at the end of this year, if we don't do some responsible things, to do some significant damage to something we inherited, which is the greatest country in the history of the world and the most important country on the planet. And I think what is troubling to many Americans, including me, is that the president views this as a continuation of his campaign, as opposed to an opportunity to govern and really set a new tone. And beyond that, his public policy that he's advocating is just bad. I mean, it doesn't matter how well it polls in one state or another. It is bad public policy. I think the biggest and most concerning part of it is these tax increases that he wants. And the press gives a lot of attention to the Grover Norquist pledge, which I was proud to sign, and all these things. But this is not about a pledge or protecting millionaires and billionaires. It's that the tax increases the president wants will do absolutely nothing for the debt, but it will destroy middle-class job creation, and it will destroy economic growth, which is the only way we're going to get out of this mess that we're in. And that's why I'm opposed to it, and that's why I won't support any effort to that would include raising taxes on anybody.
Yeah, well, this is an argument that I wish Republicans would articulate as passionately as you just did. And I'm glad you used the words, you don't care about the polls. Now, I know the latest polls show, the president's winning. And I believe there's been a political calculation by the Democrats, including the White House. And that is that they get to raise taxes on everybody, which they always like, although can't admit. And then they get to blame Republicans for it. And also they get the added benefit of massive defense cuts through sequestration.
Yeah, but see, this is the point I made earlier today in an interview that I did. There's whatever happened to the art of, figuring out what's the best thing for our country and then using your position in government service or public service to advocate for that. I mean, anyone can sit and read a poll and decide, well, that's what I'm for. But just because something polls at 58% doesn't mean it's good for the country. I think it's important for us to explain to people what the president is proposing and what its impact is going to be, because it's pretty straightforward. If you raise taxes on a small middle-class business, that is going to hurt the people that work in that business. Because if a business owner has less money next year because they're paying more in taxes, they either have to raise prices, which is bad for consumers, or they have to cut back expenses, which invariably means less hours for the workers or less pay or no raises, and that's not good for. In fact, that's devastating for our economy. And we have to make people aware of that, because when you tell people that these tax increases the president wants does nothing for the debt but hurts job creation, people change their mind pretty quickly.
Well, when you look at the actual numbers, if, for example, the president had gotten his wish in 2012 and the top 2% were paying just a little bit more, their fair share. They got to pay a little bit more, their fair share, as the president repeats and regurgitates all over again and again. But when you look at the reality of it, it would only fund the government 8.5 days, and he's almost looking at this as some type of panacea. It's just not reality.
Yeah, I mean, the question is why. Okay, fine, that's what you want to do. What do you accomplish by doing it? It does nothing for the debt. So is this just a trophy for the liberal trophy case? I mean, what's the point of doing it? Because I can tell you it does nothing for the debt, but it does hurt job creation. Because, again, if you raise taxes on a business, over 50% of the businesses, over 50% of the private sector workers in America work for the kinds of businesses that the president's plan could raise taxes on. And that's not good for us. That's very bad for us.
All right, let me play for you comments made earlier today by Speaker of the House, John Boehner. I want to get your reaction to this.
Speaker Boehner, President Obama's, the White House's reflection of your last offer was based on you not extending the tax rate to those 250 or above. A Fox News poll after the November election said 6 in 10 voters supported those going up. A new Pew poll in the Washington Post says 53% of Americans would be Republicans in Congress if we go over the fiscal cliff. How long can you afford to have this hard line on those tax cuts for those making 250 or above?
America faces a very serious problem, and our goal is to make sure it gets solved. We have a debt problem that is out of control. We've got to cut spending, and I believe that it's appropriate to put revenues on the table. Now, the revenues we're putting on the table are going to come from, guess who? The rich. Now, there are ways to limit deductions, close loopholes, and have the same people pay more of their money to the federal government without raising tax rates, which we believe will harm our economy.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, let me say I have a lot of respect for Speaker Boehner and for the difficult job that he has of trying to govern. He's actually trying to govern here as opposed to the president. He's trying to get something done, and I respect what he's doing. I would just tell you my position on it is I agree. I think we do need more revenue. The question is, how do we get the more revenue? And I think the only way you're going to get the kind of revenue that we need to balance our budget and to fund the essentials of government is through growth, not through more taxes, but through more taxpayers. You will never generate you're never going to generate the revenue you need from tax increases. You're just not. The only way we're ever going to get the revenue that all of us agree our government needs in order to bring down this debt, if in fact that's what you use it for. Because if you generate more revenue and grow the government, like happened over the last decade, and both Republicans and Democrats are responsible for this, if you take this new revenue and you grow the government, then you're just digging yourself deeper in the hole. So the question is, how do you generate the revenue? You generate it through growth, and I'm not supporting anything that isn't pro-growth.
I was frustrated when I heard that, and I'll tell you for two reasons. Number one, I don't like the fact that the language has been co-opted, and the narrative on this entire debate is, yeah, of course we're going to increase revenue on the rich. Now, to me, there's not a distinction or a difference between increasing tax rates or increasing revenue, because to me it's all the same thing. That's more money out of the economy that goes to the government, and yet we're not dealing with the main problem, which is massive overspending and entitlements that are headed for bankruptcy.
Yeah, but here's the point. If you are if you're unemployed, or let's say you're making $20,000 a year, and because the economy's growing and you've been able to acquire some skills, you're now making $50,000 a year. We can lower your tax rate, and you're still going to be numerically, I mean, dollar-wise, you may pay more in taxes than you did a year before in terms of the dollar figure because you're making more money. But that's the way you generate revenue through growth. Now, that's no good. If you do that, but you take the more money and you use it to grow the government, then you've accomplished absolutely nothing. You've got to have that. You've got to have revenue growth, through economic growth, but it has to be combined with fiscal discipline. Let me make one other point. The way forward for us, and I think in the clip you played, I said it, I want to repeat it. You don't do this by making rich people poorer. You do it by making poor people richer, and only free enterprise and limited government makes that possible. And I think we have to be very clear on that point. That, the journalist there asked about these polls. I think the question you need to ask the American people is, do you support a tax increase that does nothing for the debt but will hurt job creation? I wish they would ask that question, because I guarantee you the numbers are probably going to be about 80% against it. If you told people, do you support a tax increase that will do nothing for the debt but hurt job creation, I think over 80% of the people would say no. So that's the real question here, not this fake question about raising taxes on rich people.
I know I'm going to look at my Twitter account later after the program today, and I know I'm going to read a lot of, why can't the Republican Party articulate their side as well as Marco Rubio? Look, I've been a fan of yours from the very beginning, since you were first running from the Senate and the GOP establishment was not exactly in your corners. We've since learned a lot about Governor Christ, but why isn't the party making this case as powerfully as you are? In other words, I don't hear everybody that I interview does not seem to be taking this message to the American people, because I think it's a winning message, not only politically. I'm more concerned about your kids. You have young kids, I have young kids, and the country that we hand off to them. This is going to be the first generation that literally hands them a debt per person of over $300,000 and rising.
Well, Sean, I could say I think we're starting to, and obviously I hope to be part of a team of people that are doing that. I know Paul Ryan is doing that. I know I'm trying to do that, and others are trying to do that. And that's why forums like this show are so important to equip our folks to go out and, people that listen to your show to be able to talk to their neighbors and friends and explain to them what the stakes are here, because it's important that people understand. Look, I keep reminding people all the time who it is that are going to get their taxes increased. And ironically enough, millionaires and billionaires have the best accountants and lawyers in America. I mean, they're going to figure out this stuff. The people who get destroyed by these tax increases that Barack Obama wants are the small and mid-sized businesses that can't afford to hire fancy law firms to do all this tax jujitsu, and they get stuck and they get creamed. And then what do? They either have to close, raise their prices, which some of them cannot do, or they have to lay people off, and that's bad for us. And you're right, we have to do a better job, myself included, of repeating that over and over again and informing people of what truly is at stake here.
Senator, I hate identity politics, but a lot was made after the election about the Republicans and outreach, for example, to the Hispanic community. But you're a Cuban American. Ted Cruz was elected senator from the great state of Texas. We have Susana Martinez, who is an excellent representative, all in the Republican Party. Do you see a problem with the Hispanic vote in the Republican Party?
Well, where I see the problem is a communications problem in terms of adopting, our policies of limited government and free enterprise to the challenges of the 21st century. And the challenge of the 21st century is that our economy under this president is not generating enough of the kinds of jobs that people need. And some of our people don't have the skills to do the jobs that are being created. And I believe that conservatism has answers to both of those questions. And now, and a disproportionate number of the people who find themselves in that predicament are minorities. So I go back to my own life story. My parents, the purpose of their lives was to give us a strong and stable home where we could afford to have a good working class lifestyle, but more importantly, to give us the chance to do all the things that they couldn't. And I just tell everybody that will listen that is impossible in a big government society. You can't do it. You cannot create that kind of vibrant upward mobility in a place where the government dominates every aspect of your life and every aspect of the economy. And we've got to make that case consistently, forcefully, over a significant period of time, because I think we can win that argument, but we have to make it.
Well, Senator, I can't disagree with the word you said. I hope people listen to your speech last night and listen to what you're saying here today, because I think that will not only save the country, but that will help get the Republican Party back to its conservative roots. But, Senator, always good to talk to you. Glad your daughter is doing well, and my best to your family. And hopefully we'll talk to you before Christmas as this continues to unfold. Thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, Sean. Thank you for having me on.
Merry